Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. This is the post-game podcast. The Minnesota Timberwolves fell to the Washington Wizards on Wednesday night by 8 points. We're going to break down the game today, what happened to the Timberwolves defensively in one of their worst defensive performances of the season, and why was the offense so inefficient for the Timberwolves as well. We're going to break it all down, including D'Angelo Russell's rough shooting night, Karl-Anthony Towns' big game until a late injury. We'll talk about that as well. It's all coming up on the show. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. I'm also the editor of Dunking with Wolves, the Timberwolves site on the Fanside Network. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to you by Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility. So start now at shopify.com/LockedOnNBA. Happy Thursday, everybody. Happy, I guess not so happy post-game podcast. The Timberwolves lost the Washington Wizards. Of course, the Wolves had won 7 of their last 8 games. But on Wednesday in D.C., the Timberwolves fell to the Wizards by a final 115-107. This is the post-game podcast. We're going to talk all things Wolves-Wizards, what happened defensively to the Wolves, what happened offensively to the Wolves, really kind of all the way around. It just kind of a weird game. It was a close game, obviously, really until the last minute. What happened in this one? Also, Karl-Anthony Towns injured what appeared to be his tailbone or lower back late in the game. So we'll talk about that too. We'll break it all down. We'll do key takeaways as well as individual studs and duds on the show today. First, though, a thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen each and every day. And a reminder that Locked On Wolves is free and available on all platforms. That, of course, includes YouTube, as well as Apple, Google, Spotify, and the all-new Odyssey app. You can also follow on Twitter at Locked On T-Wolves and at Beecken with 2 B's, 2 E's, CKEN. All right, so Wolves-Wizards on Wednesday. Of course, the Wizards came into this game with the winning record. A team that's played well. They've had some good luck in close games. They're relatively healthy. Bradley Beal's been disappointing this season, but still, Davis Bertans is another player who's been really disappointing this season. But to obviously a greater extent than Bradley Beal. Of course, Beal's still quite good. He's just not having the season that we're all accustomed to seeing. So I said on the pod for Wednesday's show, I thought this was a very winnable game for Minnesota. I thought if they rebounded the ball and Cat stayed out of foul trouble, they'd win this game. Well, they were in it. It was a one-possession game really until the last, midway through the fourth quarter. It got up to 10, and then the Wolves got it back to 6, and then I think it was a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope 3, kind of sealed it with about a minute to play. But this was a close game throughout. Early in the game, it was very sloppy. Both teams actually played pretty well defensively early, but it was almost equal parts terrible offense for both teams as well. It was 24-24 after the first quarter. And the game was kind of, we'll get into this more here in a minute with key takeaways, but the Wizards were kind of daring the Timberwolves to go into the post to Karl-Anthony Towns. And I don't know, and they were mostly single covering him. They started the game with Kyle Kuzma, mostly guarding Towns, kind of morphed into Daniel Gafford, who we'll talk more about later. He had a fantastic game on both ends of the floor, really. But he kind of set the tone. He blocked a Karl-Anthony Towns, a would-be Karl-Anthony Towns dunk in the opening minutes of the game, and then had another block a short time later, and really set the tone for the Wizards to kind of dominate things in the paint in this game. Washington ended up being a plus 13 on the glass. They ended up blocking 6 shots in this game. They caused the Timberwolves they blocked 7 shots in this game and enforced, 12 Timberwolves turnovers. And, the Wizards, they weren't outstanding defensively, but they were certainly better than the Wolves were defensively. And that started with Gafford in the paint. It started with really, again, daring the Timberwolves to play through Towns in the post, knowing that they could then kind of, mitigate what he was able to do, try and get him into foul trouble too, right? And that hasn't been hard to do this season. To Towns' credit, he actually was pretty good in this game. 2 of his 3 fouls were almost intentional fouls because he had fouls to play with, guys going to the rim and him fouling guys that were about to score in the second half. So this is, a luxury that we haven't seen from Towns at all recently. But early in the game, Towns was not efficient. He was like I think he started 4 of 10 in the paint. And he had a big second quarter, but it wasn't ultra efficient. And that was difficult. But then as the game went on, third quarter, he got a little bit better. Eventually he was going to start making shots. the problem was that the Timberwolves defense, as soon as the offense started clicking, the defense took a half step backwards. And the Wolves tried all kinds of things defensively. We'll get into that. They tried some zone. They tried switching up their pick and roll coverages, and nothing really seemed to stick. And Washington, for the most part, got what they wanted, really after the first quarter. This game was close. It was about a 2-possession game midway through the fourth quarter. Karl-Anthony Towns shot a 3-pointer from really kind of I guess it was more almost straight away 3. And he did the thing. We've all seen Towns do this. If he thinks he can draw a foul, he'll kick his leg out. Usually they call nothing. I don't know that I've ever seen him actually get the foul call when he kicks his leg out. He did that in this instance, got the foul call. And then, of course, upon challenge, it was overturned. Montrezl Harrell was not, they took the foul away, and the ball got jumped at center court. The Wolves got the possession, but then didn't score after that, instead of Towns getting 3 free throws. By the way, the reason I bring that up is if Towns hadn't stuck his leg out, they probably still call the foul, because Montrezl Harrell did not run into Towns' leg. He ran into like his hip and his upper body almost, and he still would have crashed into Towns. Towns didn't need to stick his leg out, but because he did, they took the foul away, and he ended up not shooting free throws. It's a bad habit that Towns has gotten into. And, 10 years ago, they didn't even call that an offensive foul. Now they do. And so instead of Towns drawing a foul, he's going to be called for a foul most of the time when he does that. But that, at the time was a 2-possession game. They could have cut it to a 1-possession game. And then from that point forward, it never really got closer than 6, I don't believe. But that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back at the end of the game. I should also mention here off the top that Towns landed hard on his tailbone. He had a dunk that cut the lead he cut it from 10 to 8. And you could, if you watch the replay, he got the dunk baseline, his left hand slipped off the rim. And so he was trying to catch himself, but with his left hand slipping off, his legs swung out. He landed square in his tailbone, and speculated that it's a tailbone injury, could be lower back, but it didn't look good. He had to come out of the game. He was laying down on the bench, took him back to the locker room, apparently before the game was over, for x-rays, reportedly. Various folks are reporting that on Twitter. So we'll see. As of this recording, we don't know how serious it is. It did not look good. The Wolves have tomorrow off. They play in Brooklyn on Friday, so we'll see. And then they've got 2 days off this weekend, Saturday, Sunday. So if it's, hopefully it's not a fracture or anything like that, which would obviously be terrible. If it was a bruise, maybe they give him Friday off. He can maybe heal up in time for Monday's game. He ends up with 5 days off or something like that. Complete speculation at this point, but it definitely did not look good, and he was not able to finish the game. So the Wolves ultimately lose by 8. It was a little closer than that. Obviously, this was essentially a 1-2 possession game for most of it, but the Wizards kind of pulled away at the end. Next, what I want to do is I want to hit really, I guess, kind of 4 key takeaways from this game. What we can pull out of this game, apply forward to the Brooklyn game on Friday, and what we can hang our hat on after this one. So we're going to do that next before we get to individual studs and duds after that. First, though, let's talk about the title sponsors of today's program, and that, of course, is Shopify. In case you didn't know, Shopify is a complete commerce platform that lets you start, grow, and manage a business. The subscription-based software allows anyone to set up an online store and sell their products. Shopify store owners can also sell in physical locations using Shopify POS, our point-of-sale app, and accompanying hardware. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big businesses, so upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility, and Shopify helps you make your entrepreneurial dreams come true. I love how Shopify has the tools and resources that make it easy for any business to succeed, from down the street to around the globe. Shopify powers over 1.7 million businesses from first sale to full scale, reaching customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. It allows you to gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting of conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond. Go to shopify.com/LockedOnNBA for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/LockedOnNBA right now. Shopify.com/LockedOnNBA. Let's also talk about our friends at Truebill. Do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill to take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions that you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts, and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. Truebill has over 2 million users and helped save them over $100 million. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now, truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Okay, let's talk key takeaways. Number one for me, the defense, 115 points given up. They'd given up under 100, I think, 9 times this year, and like 7 out of the last 9 games overall. This was bad. And the Wizards are an okay offensive team, but I talked about this on the show Wednesday. They're not a great three-point shooting team overall. Bradley Beal's having a down year from 3. Bertans was having a down year from 3 until this game, of course, his best game of the season. And, they're middle of the pack offensive rebounding. There's really no reason why Minnesota should have allowed so many easy baskets to the Wizards. Is really weird. But they did. It started with rim protection, and the Timberwolves were still playing their typical, playing at the level defensively in the pick and roll game, and having the low man try and step up and Xing out on the perimeter to contest corner threes. But they were just kind of I don't know. It was more than a half step, maybe 3/4 of a step slow in this game. The low man wasn't consistently getting to where he needed to be. Not having Jaden McDaniels, who missed another game due to illness, that obviously mattered. In my opinion, Jared Vanderbilt was at least a half step slow in this game. He, of course, missed Monday with flu-like symptoms. So I don't know if the illness is still impacting him or not, but he definitely seemed to be slow. Anthony Edwards also, by the way, who was questionable before the game with an illness, flu-like symptoms. He didn't have his best game either on either end of the floor. So the defense, the rim protection, the rotations, everything was just slow. And I don't know that the effort level was bad. It was pretty good in the first quarter that when they held them to 24 points. But then it just kind of was more and more sluggish as the game went on, and it just felt like there wasn't a whole lot of energy. In some respects, similar to the Charlotte game last Friday, which was sandwiched between the big win over Miami and the big win over Philadelphia on Saturday. It was a similar kind of vibe. So definitely disappointing. And the Wolves even tried. I mean, they tried some different things. They tried mixing in some zone, which hasn't worked very well this year for the Wolves, although it's gotten a little bit better in recent games. Those possessions, I actually thought the Wolves scrambled pretty well. The Wizards made some tough shots when Minnesota was in zone, and they made them pay. They tried it late in the game when they were down a couple of possessions, and it didn't work. They tried switching pick and roll coverages instead of playing at the level of the screen, or at the level of the ball. They tried switching more than they often, they don't usually switch everything, right? They're fighting through screens. They're playing at the level. They tried switching everything late in the game. Nothing really seemed to click. It was a combination of the Wizards had a solid game offensively. The Timberwolves were sluggish. They were missing Jaden McDaniels. Josh Okogie had a so-so game when he was in there. It just never clicked. And it was a rough defensive game for the Wolves. My second takeaway, I guess that was my defensive team takeaway. We'll do an offensive team takeaway as well. Felt like the Wolves, and I haven't dug into the shot chart after the game, but I noted this multiple times in my notes during the game. The Timberwolves seem to be shooting a lot more mid-range jumpers in this one. And I don't know that I'm not concerned. The Wolves still lead the league in 3-point attempts per game, and they still squeeze the trigger from beyond the arc 37 times in this one. But it was like they just didn't quite want to get all the way into the paint. And I mean, they still attempted 26 free throws. It just felt like as kind of sluggish as the defense felt at times, the offense was lazy is maybe a strong word, but just a lot of pull up mid-range jumpers, double clutch, pump fake, dribble into a mid-range jumper. Anthony Edwards, Towns didn't take that many, but D'Lo did his typical thing. And they just, I don't know. It just didn't feel like the Wolves did a very good job. Really, there wasn't much flow to the offense. And the second piece of this is the struggles in the paint shooting the basketball. They just weren't making shots at the rim. Towns started out struggling there. He got better as the game went on. Anthony Edwards had another game where he just blew a bunch of layups. And they're not easy layups, but occasionally he makes things more difficult than they need to be. I don't know if it's because he's trying to make the spectacular play or if he's simply trying to avoid contact that he probably should just absorb and get to the free throw line, or if he's just assuming he won't get the call. And so he's trying an acrobatic, reverse layup, which he missed a couple of those. He missed a couple of scoop layups that he typically would make, you would think. But the at the rim percentage, that's something I want to focus on. I want to look at that on Friday's show when we preview Wolves Nets. I'm going to look at Anthony Edwards at the rim shooting percentage, both last year and this year, free throw rate. Some of the stuff we just anecdotally would assume that he would be good at, but he's actually struggled a little bit shooting the ball at the rim, and that was on full display in this game. That's my third takeaway, but he wasn't the only one that struggled at the rim. So that was kind of a segue into my third takeaway. My fourth takeaway is D'Angelo Russell had a really rough game. He shot 3 of 18. He was 1 of 12 outside the arc, called his own number a couple of times when he shouldn't have. But outside of shooting, he played really well. And if you want to hear if you're a D'Angelo Russell fan and you missed the show on Wednesday, go back and watch or listen to it, because I spent I don't know, almost 15 minutes just praising D'Angelo Russell because he's been so good over the past 2 weeks. And outside of shooting the ball, he was really good in this one. He had 9 assists, only 3 turnovers. Defensively, go back and watch the final 2 minutes of the game, or maybe don't, because generally it was really depressing. But even though he was missing all these shots and didn't get some foul calls he thought he should have gotten, D'Angelo Russell, this is, he was competing defensively. He forced Bradley Beal into a turnover in the final couple minutes of the game when the Timberwolves were still trying to get back in it. I mean, old D'Lo, and by that I mean probably like 3 weeks ago, D'Lo would have hung his head, not, basically kind of sulked and not really competed defensively. He competed defensively for all 39 minutes he was on the court in this game. And again, very encouraging, not explaining away the 3 for 18. We'll get to studs and duds later, and his name's going to come up. But his all around game, outside of shooting the basketball, 10 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 blocks, only 3 turnovers, in a team high 39 minutes for D'Lo. It's hard to complain about that effort level. It's hard to complain about him genuinely competing for all 39 minutes he's on the court instead of packing it in, knowing that he had a rough shooting night. And the Timberwolves at that point were probably going to lose anyway, but he was still competing the entire way, through the possession. He, just really impressive. And Bradley Beal can get to the rim and score, but D'Lo made him really kind of work late in the game, and really throughout the game. I thought the point of attack defense was actually fairly solid when it was D'Angelo Russell out there. And obviously that's something that Patrick Beverley, having him on the court, would impact quite a bit. He would be able to give Russell some support, and goes without saying. I mentioned McDaniels earlier, obviously Beverley missing as well. Both those guys missing is a huge issue for the Timberwolves defensively. Okay, I want to close with individual studs and duds, as we always do. We're going to get to that next. First, though, let's talk about our friends at betonline.ag. BetOnline has you covered all season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football season continues the march towards the playoffs, BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today. Receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON for a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. From basketball to football, NHL to boxing and UFC, right on down to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, individual studs and duds. Not too hard to figure out for this one. Number one for me for the Timberwolves in terms of studs is Karl-Anthony Towns. He didn't have his most efficient shooting night, and there were a couple of bad turnovers mixed in there. But generally speaking, I think anybody will take 34 and 10 every day of the week. 10 of 11 at the free throw line, which was good to see. He had 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block, 3 turnovers in 33 minutes, which compared to the 9 turnovers he had on Monday against the Pacers, not so bad. Of course, the injury late, but generally speaking, Towns was solid. He had some kind of, gimmies he missed early in the game. But he was the best player on the floor for the Timberwolves, I thought, all around in this game, and it was a good performance. Number 2 for me in this one is Nas Reid. He mostly played in relief of Towns, but he did play a few minutes with Towns. He was on the court with Karl-Anthony Towns when Towns got hurt late in the game. But Nas had 13 points on 6 of 10 shooting, hit a 3-pointer early in this one, 13 points, 3 rebounds in 18 minutes. He did have 4 fouls. A couple of them were cheapies, but for the most part, Nas played really well. And especially if Towns is out Friday at Brooklyn, again, speculating, don't know that, but if he's missing, Nas is going to get a heavy dose of minutes. And he's played really, really well this season overall. So good to see him perform well yet again. The third stud for me in this one is going to be Anthony Edwards. It wasn't his best game, but across the board, yeah, I mean, the Timberwolves just didn't play that well. Vando was a step slow defensively. Taurean Prince missed some open shots. Josh Okogie was ineffective. Malik Beasley was ineffective. I mean, there's nobody else to really write home about it all in this one. So Anthony Edwards, 4 of 9 from 3, 7 of 8 at the free throw line, 25 points and 30 on 17 shots. That's relatively efficient. 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. You'd like to see him do more in some of those other categories. and he did have 3 turnovers, but it was okay. It was just a weirdly quiet 25-point performance from Anthony Edwards. And, defensively, I mentioned earlier, he seemed a half step slow at least as well in this one. A dud for me in this one, it's got to be D'Angelo Russell. I know I talked about besides his shooting, he played well. Um, I mean, you shoot 3 of 18, you can't not be considered a dud in this one. 1 of 12 outside the arc. And D'Lo's never going to stop shooting for better or for worse. And in this case, it was maybe for worse. Although with no Towns on the floor and Ant kind of, having a lackadaisical game, it was good to see D'Lo continue to stay aggressive on both ends, and the Wolves needed to kind of catch lightning in a bottle late. So I don't really fault him for that. But the 3 of 18, 1 of 12 from deep, only 4 free throw attempts in 39 minutes for D'Lo. Not his best performance. I would also, Malik Beasley was okay. He competed, but 3 of 7 shooting. They need more out of him, especially, with Patrick Beverley out. In this one with Towns getting banged up late. They just need Malik Beasley to do more. And I know I've said that after almost every game this season, but going to continue to say that until we see some level of consistency out of Malik Beasley. That's it for this one. I mean, there's really nothing else to say. It just was a game. They just got beat. The Timberwolves were not very good defensively. They weren't efficient enough offensively. They were a step slow. These games happen in the NBA. It's disappointing when it's a winnable game against a team. I know that they were 13-8, but we talked about this in the preview. The Wizards aren't really a 13-8 team, right? They've had some lucky wins. They've beaten some bad teams. They play in the Eastern Conference. This is a game that the Wolves really should have won. And it's disappointing that they lost. That said, over an 82 game season, you're going to have a handful of these, and it's not like they got blown out. They competed for the most part, and we're in the game towards the end. So disappointing, but it kind of is what it is. Now it only gets more difficult. The Timberwolves are in Brooklyn on Friday. They wrap up the East Coast swing at the Brooklyn Nets. Of course, Brooklyn's fantastic. Then they have the weekend off before coming home for a 3-game homestand next week. Games Monday, Wednesday, Friday against 3 winning teams: the Atlanta Hawks, Utah Jazz, and Cleveland. Surprising, although they've struggled a lot recently. They lost, I think, 6 in a row. But the Cavs next Friday in Minnesota. Ricky Rubio's return. So lots of difficult games coming up. We'll talk about this more on Friday's show, but I think it's 16 of the next 17 games, if I'm not mistaken, are coming against winning teams with winning records. So, I mean, you got to go to like January 5th and 7th against, 2 consecutive games against the Oklahoma City Thunder before the Timberwolves get to play 2 straight games against a bad team, or even a team with a losing record, not even just a bad team. So it's going to be kind of a murderer's row over the next 2-3 weeks here. We'll break that down a little bit on Friday, as well as promised, we'll talk about Anthony Edwards' numbers at the rim and what he could potentially do differently to be a little bit more consistent there. But that'll be Friday's show. Otherwise, that's all we have for you today. Thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen each and every day. And a reminder that you can listen on any platform or watch on YouTube. If you don't want to watch, if you don't want to see my face while you listen to my Timberwolves analysis, you can listen on any audio platform. That includes Apple, Google, Spotify, and the all-new Odyssey app. You can also follow on Twitter at Locked On T-Wolves and at Beecken. That's Beecken with 2 B's, 2 E's, CKEN. All right, that's all we have for you today. Thanks again for listening to the show. Remember, Locked On Wolves is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. The Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.